Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
This is the second installment of our um, fourth anniversary celebration. So, as some of you know, or most of you know, that we Immersive Trails turned for yesterday. So, we started on as Heritage Walk Calcutta on 12th of February 2017 with our first walking tour, which was a walk in the South Park Street Cemetery. So 12th of February. So yesterday, hello Madhumitadi. So yesterday was our fourth anniversary, and this weekend we are celebrating it through various ways. We started this morning. We started our physical walks once again, forming a safety bubble, so only with six people and with COVID precautions and all of that. After a year, and today we are going to talk about, Chelsea and I are going to talk about our journey as, I would say, unlikely entrepreneurs, being from humanities background, having no exposure in entrepreneurship, no MBA, as people think are necessary to be entrepreneurs. Good evening, Gautam. Um, so we'll talk about our journey, and then tomorrow we actually have Preetha, who is our first employee. So she is now doing PhD at Rutgers University in the United States, but she happened to be in Kolkata now, and she is going to talk about her experiences working with us in the very early days of the company on the live session, along with Anmol. So Anmol joined the company right around the time that she left. So Anmol would also have something to share about her experiences working with Immersive Trails, which will be moderated by Surbhi, who is a consultant in the company. And following that, there will be a 1 hour long virtual trail live on Facebook of St. John's Church tomorrow at 5 p.m. So from 5 to 6 p.m. So that's going to be free and live on Facebook, led by me. That's how we are going to wrap up our anniversary celebrations. We're also going to launch a couple of merchandise tomorrow. Uh, which includes a beautiful. Sh- uh, can you talk about? Do you want to talk about the merchandise a little bit?
Yeah, so probably one that uh, you'll find very interesting, all of you, is um, a Shonachari sari from Vishnupur, which we got from the artisan who made it. And it's the traditional kind, so it doesn't have as much of the figurative patterns as you would see in some of the more popular ones, but it is really gorgeous. Um, and then uh, another thing that you'll find that we'll be releasing tomorrow is a conch shell, which is carved by again an artisan in Bishnupur, and it took him 3 months to
So more
carve.
than 500 hours of work to carve it, and that's one of a piece. And we'll also be putting that up for auction along with the sari for auction tomorrow. So that's
Hmm.
that's tomorrow. But today we are going to talk about our journey as entrepreneurs, uh, in the hopes that we, like many of you, have asked us already about this, and in the hopes that we will be able to. Uh, Maybe inspire some of you or just share some of our experiences, put it out there and all of that. So I think I would like to start. I want to start in our journey um, in I think about in 2013 when I was doing my PhD in Exeter. So this university over here, great university. Uh, they have not sponsored this, by the way. So, but I was doing my PhD in archaeology there, and um, I was I saw that for scholars to come and communicate with the general community, it was a thing that scholars come out and talk to the general community, and it was also required as a part of the curricula sometimes, and it was also done in ways through walking tours and other experiences, school engagement, something that is missing in India, and so Chelsea, I think, had similar experiences in the US as well. So that is when we decided that we can do something like this when we actually moved to Calcutta after my PhD is done, after her master's was done. So after while finishing up my PhD in 2016, uh, I started working as an academic instructor in Kerala, in an institute in Kerala, um, as an archaeology teacher, and Chelsea was there as well to assist with the work there. So she was teaching English to the students there as well. So we really saw we got disillusioned by academia a little bit because we saw that people in academia, especially in India, don't talk to people outside academia. They just try to talk to each other. There is a very secretiveness about research that they do. So as if other people get to know about the research, that's something that's going to be that's something that is a complete no-no. And our we had problems with that because I thought that if you do not really share your research with the general community about something that pertains to archaeology or heritage or history, which every one of us has it's our common history, our common heritage, and every one of us should feel proud about of that, or at least have access to that information. Then there is no point of scholarship. So basically, what we did is then we got so fed up with the work, we got disillusioned with the academia, that we decided to leave our jobs and take this huge dive into the unknown in the entrepreneurial world. I'd hand over to Chelsea to speak about her experiences at that time and our joint decision to do it, and then I'll start again where she leaves.
So I first came to Bengal in 2011. And that was specifically to learn Bengali because I wanted to go into academia, become a professor of anthropology. And so I came to Kolkata in 2012, and it was a place that I really loved because you could feel the history as you walk through the streets. But at the same time, there was no way to understand what I was looking at. So even if you had a guidebook, it wasn't very helpful. Um, Occasionally, you'll find a sign that's written that says something about somebody who lived there. But in general, there wasn't really any way for me to know what I was looking at. And I thought that was really tragic because the city has so much, and the history of Calcutta is so huge that it should have some way for the general public to know about it. And as everybody knows, I grew up in the US, and in the US, I won't say that it's wonderful. It's not the best. Everything could also be improved, but the difference between the public history education and education about archaeology and things like that in the US and the public history education here is huge. So I grew up watching history documentaries, which talked about how things worked during World War II and all that sort of stuff. I grew up being able to go to archaeological sites and understand what I was seeing because they had proper, instructional information, educational information on signs and things like that. The museums also had a lot of the time they had really well done modern displays which tell a story and make you engaged in it. And when I came here, I saw that that wasn't really the case. Um, I mean, India doesn't have a dedicated documentary channel, for example. And I knew that the things that I had seen in the US were very US specific. So I knew a lot about the US's engagement in World War II. I didn't know that Kolkata was a big, World War II base for the US Army. because it's not talked about. So things like that, I thought really needed to be highlighted, but I didn't know how. So then I went back to the US, did my master's at the University of Chicago. Also, a very good school, but it made me quite disillusioned with academia in general, simply because there was no real outreach. It was very much in a silo or a bubble. So um, after I came back, we got married, um, and we were, you know, in Kolkata. One of the things that we really liked to do um, together, the two of us, was to go explore the old parts of the city, find out what's there, whose house is this, that sort of thing. Um, he had already done a lot of that in his college days with his friends, and he was able to take me around and show me some things. Then around 2015, we got an opportunity for him to lead a few one-off walking tours in a couple of different areas in the city, and it was really good to see how people responded to that. Then we went to Kerala, and as he said, um, we decided to leave that, and I think you can talk about why exactly what catalyzed that decision.
Yeah, so basically what happened is we, as I said, we were disillusioned. But so in September 2016, my father passed away suddenly. So all in the like one night, I get a phone call. We get a phone call in Kerala that suddenly, without any signs or anything, my father had passed away, and we had to make our way to Calcutta. And after coming back to Calcutta, we learned that my dad was getting harassed quite a lot. I mean, I come from a very low income family, so my father's income was never more than 12,000 rupees a month. So that's very low income. And all the studies that I could do was because of scholarships that I got from different places. Um, so so it turns out that my dad was being harassed by a couple of people for the last over the last couple of years of his life about some money that he had borrowed from one of them for funding a part of my master's studies in the UK. Um, and so we paid the money back, but it had had its toll on him. And also, many of them had told him that studying archaeology will not lead anywhere, and that I will end up begging in the streets for that. So my dad passing away, reading his diaries at that time, and right after that point, like after I got access to his diaries, it just made me feel the pain. Along with everything else. And also, it made me take this resolution that I have to actually prove myself, and I have to show that I can innovate, and that as an archaeologist, what people think in India is that your career is linear, right? You have to after you get your PhD done, you have to join the ASI and all of that, or you have to teach somewhere. Otherwise, you don't have any future, and there are not many teaching jobs available. While I was pretty cushioned in my job that I was doing, I do not like it. So I had this urge of proving myself as well, and so we decided that we will like we took this big leap. We left our job. We came back to Calcutta, and I would like to mention a couple of names, Shantanuda and Shagurda. So they had initially provided a bit of funding for us to start up Heritage Walk Calcutta, which was it was known at that time. So we are really thankful and grateful to them. And other than that, we just put in all our money, all our savings that we had, uh, and put everything in because we realized that if we want to do this, we have to be all in, or we can't do this for a long time. And we knew that we at this point knew that we want to do this for years to come. This is what we want to make. We want to make history and heritage accessible to people by creating by doing research, by doing by connecting with the communities, and by ethically curating immersive experiences out of the research that we do. So so in February 2012, 2017, sorry, we just started. We took this huge leap into the unknown, and that started our journey as entrepreneurs. And as a result, I mean, my mother was pretty panicked at that time. Just remember that she had just been widowed. She was going through a bad phase in terms of mental health, and she panicked because she thought that since there is this saying that Bengalis cannot do business, my mother told me that yes, that's that is true, and you are going to lose all your money and come back to your senses in a few months and go back to teaching again. So that was her prediction. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But everyone else, like near us, like our family members and all of that close to us, almost everyone discouraged us from doing what we are
I
doing, and
remember almost everybody told us Bengalis won't walk. um, that was the thing that a lot of people told us. Bengalis won't walk, therefore you need to focus on foreign tourists, and also your business is a terrible idea. It's not going to work. I think
yeah,
we've
and
pretty conclusively proven at this point that Bengalis will walk if you give them a reason to.
yeah and uh, from the very beginning we didn't want to focus only on foreign tourists, because there are two reasons for this. First of all, we thought that if you do the actual research, if you do good research, then why not, like we were convinced that people from the city, from Calcutta, which is such a historic city, people from Calcutta would like to see their city if you can provide them actual information and more immersive, ethically researched information. If you just read off the Wikipedia and tell them stories, then of course they will not be interested in visiting these places. And you need to keep on doing research, find unique themes, and all of that. Secondly, we for a business reason also focusing only on foreign tourists makes no sense, because that reduces your income as a tour company uh, to a few months only in the winter months. And that's like everyone fighting for that one slice of the pie. And if you look at the the tourist arrivals and movements and all of that, you'll see that foreign tourists only make 1% of the total tourist movement and arrivals, like movement in the country every year. So everyone is fighting for that 1% of the pie, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to be operational throughout the year, and we wanted to provide an ethical experience for everyone who comes to the city, or people in the city who actually wants to know their city in a better way. So that was our two-pronged idea about not doing something which is cliched and doing something which is only targeted at foreign tourists and saying like fabulous stories about things, and sticking to top 10 sites of Calcutta like Victoria Memorial or St. Paul's Cathedral and Dalhousie Square and all of that. Of course, these places are important, but we wanted to bring out unique stories through research.
Mhm. Also, we throw around the word ethical a lot. So where does that come from? My background is in so I'm a linguistic anthropologist by training, and my research has involved researching indigenous groups in various parts of the world, but particularly in Bangladesh. And once you get into the research on indigeneity and tourism in particular, um, you know that it's an extremely tricky situation to deal with, because a lot of the indigenous tourism experiences are very exploitative, especially in places like India. They, don't really communicate with the people. They are just basically bringing in outsiders and showing people off and making them dance for you and things like that. We believed that there is an ethical way to show India, to show different groups of people, to show different stories. And this kind of came out of our desire to show that it is possible to do tourism ethically, to show communities in a more three-dimensional light to be as non-exploitative as possible. So everything that we do is predicated on these ideas that we don't want to exploit people. We want to respect and value everyone's contribution. And any research that we do is done following all of the research ethics that we learned in academia. And also, we try to communicate with people on an individual level as equals. And that includes everybody.
Yeah, so we were really surprised to see the like list of how our like anthropological survey of India lists an indigenous community, or rather a tribal community. And you have to have a unique dance, for example. Like if you don't have a, if you're a tribal group which don't have a unique dance, then you're not registered as a tribal community. So and that's how, what translates into tourism as well. You go to these indigenous villages, and you go to um, and you are generally shown people dressed up and dancing. You hardly get to see, I mean, there are obviously some companies doing brilliant work in that respect, but most of the time you just get to see the facade of it. You do not get to talk to people. You do not get to actually share their lives. You do not, and you are not often sure how much money is actually going back to the community, and what way they're getting benefited by your tour. So we wanted to be very transparent in that manner, and that's why we keep on focusing on being ethical constantly. I think in terms of I think Chelsea can talk about a little bit about the early days of us, and then we can talk about the struggles that we faced
Mhm.
as a startup. Um, First of all, we are not officially a startup. We can't get any startup funding. Um, we can't be recognized as a startup by the government. That is because in Indian government's definition, startups are only tech companies, which is insane. So yeah, we have not received anything from the government at any point, and we have not really received any support at any point as a startup, including tax breaks that we should have received, or if we were in some other country. But this is our choice. We chose to be here, and we are okay with that. I mean, we are not okay with that, but I think uh, there needs to be a consciousness that there can be startups which are not tech companies.
Mhm. Yeah, so basically as he said, we just kind of jumped in wholeheartedly when we started, and times were rough. I mean, when you're starting up a new company, you're short on money. So some of you may know this. I also work as a professional academic editor. So the money that I was bringing in by editing books for publishers and for um, individuals, much of that was actually going to fund the beginning stages of Heritage Walk Calcutta. I remember one time I actually literally took what I had earned and spent it on Preetha's salary, for example. So this was um, our attempt to really, make Heritage Walk Calcutta work by really putting in the effort, putting in the money, even though we didn't have much in the first place. Um, we really wanted to uh, bring out the research and things like that. So another problem was that I didn't actually get a permanent residency in India until 2018. So at the beginning, I could not be an official part of the company. I was just doing some back end work. I was assisting on walks because, I mean, he's my husband, and I felt like I should. So that's one of the reasons why I never led any walks until fairly recently, because I wasn't allowed to, because I didn't have the right paperwork. And that's a whole nother issue that we can go into at another time. Um, basically, some other issues that we ran into in the very early days was, um, well, we're still having trouble getting funding, um, because first people didn't really understand what the product was. People still don't understand what the product is, things like that. Um, it was also basically we had a bit of trouble in terms of getting people to come on the walks. So at the beginning, we were trying to promote this new concept of what a walking tour is, who should be coming on it, all that stuff. Procton had just come out before this, and for some reason, I don't know how, people had got the idea that from this movie that walks are places to go to have affairs. So we
Yeah, I don't
had
know
some
how
weird
people got that from that film.
so we had some weird questions about that in the early days. Um, yeah, so basically, it obviously um, it was a real struggle. But one of the reasons that we had founded Heritage Walk Calcutta then as as a for-profit company instead of as like a non-profit was that we wanted to be able to support ourselves by raising money, and demonstrate that this can be done in a profitable way.
Yeah, yeah, and also we wanted to make sure that we make profit ethically, and we put that as part of that money back into the company for research. So we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to get to that cycle, and thankfully, after incurring a narrow loss in the first year, from second year onwards, from 2018 onwards, we have made a profit, which is great, and I'm really grateful. We're really grateful to all of you who
Mm-hmm.
helped us achieve that, who participated in our walks and all of that. So we're really proud of that. We're proud of our team members. So Chelsea just mentioned Preetha. So Preetha
Mm-hmm.
was our first employee. She came to our first walk on 12th of February 2017,
as a
and
uh, as a
and then she
participant.
as a participant, and then she fell in love with the concept, and then she joined later in the year at Heritage Walk Calcutta. So yeah, I mean that's how we try to make money ethically, and we want to. I mean, at this point, I think we're at a point where we'd like to raise some funds, which we are in the process of doing, because I think the company now deserves to take the next uh, leap. Yes, Rommel, we do earn from walk fees. That's what we are talking about here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so something else that's a reason that we decided to become a for-profit company instead of an NGO or something like that is that it gave us some more freedom in terms of what we wanted to research, what we wanted to highlight, because NGOs have the problem of needing to find funding from elsewhere, from international funding bodies, that sort of thing. And while that's good, it also can be limiting in terms of what you're asked to use that money for. So, for example, it might direct research in specific ways. And what we've seen by doing a lot of reading on Kolkata is that a lot of the research on Calcutta focuses on a few different themes, whereas there's a lot that hasn't been covered, partially because the funding has been available for those few different themes
Yeah, so
and
mostly
not for other things.
poverty and partition, which are important, but it comes with sometimes it comes with that thing that rider that you have to only focus on these things, and other things
Mm-hmm.
gets not focused on. So
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to be able to work on the themes that we like to work on, which we tried like to research. So like World War II in the city, like murder and mayhem, so true crime, and all of these things. And we wanted to not be bound by any funding rules in that sense, by any funding agency. So that's why we kept on try to fund ourselves, and we have been successfully doing that. So that's uh, one of our achievements.
Mm-hmm.
So Rommel is asking where will these funds be spent? I don't understand your question. Uh,
So, I mean, a lot of the money goes into the research. We have funded independent research projects. We're
like the
currently,
Messbury project.
like the Mespari
Um,
project, we're also currently doing uh, documentation projects on the cinemas and on the ghats in Calcutta. And those projects, while we do expect to make some money out of it, they're not being funded per se. The um, we're funding the research. So essentially, that's where the funds are going.
I think let's take a couple of more questions that have
Mhm.
come up. So Cora is asking how difficult to undergo was it to undergo complete transition during the pandemic, which we will be talking about very soon.
Mhm.
And then Gautam has some good things to say about us. Thank you very much. Shovik has some good things to say about us. Thank you very much
Mhm.
indeed. Okay, so I think here I think it um, needs to be highlighted that as a what we learned on the job as an entrepreneur is that um, as someone who is doing an offbeat business like us, um, you cannot really like yes, you get a lot of good feedback. People, your walks become popular, business becomes popular, and all of that. But you cannot rest then. We never rest. What we do is we keep on innovating. Uh, we keep on putting back our resources in the company to come up with new research. So it constantly goes on. And I think this is what is very important for a company. You need to constantly keep on innovating, keep on running. You cannot feel that you are at the top of the top of a hill and your path has ended, because the path then is down if you stop. So basically, the idea is to keep on running, and that's why we keep on putting a lot of funds in innovation, a lot of funds in training, training younger people like our interns, who would then become walk leaders and then later in the life become researchers and all of that. So we give them that early experience, because we realized that in India, I mean, having studied in India myself, in fact, till the bachelor's level, I realized that the students here do not really get that internship opportunity where they are treated as like they're given freedom to think. So most internships generally become places where you are told what to do constantly, or you're just, as people told us, that you're just made to bring coffee, fetch coffee and tea for your superior. So we wanted to break that cycle, and that's what we put a lot of our efforts in training people, future researchers, and all of that. So yeah, and we also were basically have done some fruitful collaborations over the years. So we are really thankful to University of Exeter, for example, for collaborating with us on a couple of students program, and we keep on leading students program for them, and we'll now reach out to other universities as well. We are currently doing a very great collaboration with, I mean, not great as in Trumpish way, but a good collaboration with the Living Waters Museum to create a record and create several virtual walks on the ghats of Calcutta. We are collaborating with the Art House Asia Film Festival to record the single screen theaters. We had collaborated with Exeter University uh, and some other universities to work on training people as well. Um,
Mhm.
we collaborated with the Goethe Institute, British Council, um, and several other organizations. So all of these have been very fruitful. But one collaboration I want to point out, because that was our first, is that I want to give a shout out to Bhaskar and Miranda of Made in Bengal, because they were our first collaborators even before we started. We went on a road trip, we recorded some places together, and they basically gave us like much needed encouragement while everyone was negative around us to basically go on and and do what we want to do. So, Bhaskar and Miranda, if you're listening to this, then thank you very much for that. Uh, so, we can quickly move to, I think, COVID and how it struck us.
Hmm.
And then we can talk about the rebranding and then take some questions.
Yeah. So uh, we had, since the beginning of the company, we had been trying to figure out how to do something virtually that where we could reach out to more people worldwide, because we believed that there would be interest from people worldwide about learning about Calcutta and learning about what we talked about. And obviously, because the walking tours are limited, there's a limited number of people. You have to be there at a specific time on a specific day, and you have to be in Calcutta. So we thought that there was scope to do something virtually, but we couldn't quite decide what. We also had a very difficult time trying to get any funding for that pre-COVID because
Yeah, because it was very difficult to explain what we are talking about.
yeah.
Like we made pitch after pitch after pitch after pitch, and we pitched to so many people, mostly in Kolkata, and we were actually told that you should do luxury tours instead. That there is not going to be any money in virtual doing virtual stuff. But thankfully, all of our stuff was ready. Like when we developed a walking tour physically, we were always thinking that how would we do it if we did it virtually? How would we do it one day if we had this virtual platform, or if we had made this app to do it? So that was
Hmm.
always going on behind our heads.
Hmm. Something else that has always been kind of playing in in the back of our minds is the idea of making an international network of organizations that do things similar to what we're doing, who use research and ethical research at that to make um, immersive experiences for the public, which really allows people to understand more and get engaged with history and culture and things like that. So this has always been in the back of our minds that we want to make a network of some sort. And we really took the first step towards that with one big collaboration that we did with the University of Exeter with some UK funding, which was the Walking Heritage into Future Cities project, where we actually trained several people from India, Sri Lanka, and the UK in Kolkata for 3 weeks in the summer of 2019. Obviously, we haven't been able to continue doing those sorts of things because of the pandemic, but we are doing things online now. And one thing that's coming up is that we will be offering experiences by organizations in different parts of the world who are doing these sorts of tours. So I'll give you a little bit of a teaser at the end when we talk a little bit more about what we did with COVID.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So basically, when COVID hit, we were actually in Manipur. We were doing our Manipur trail at that time, and
Hmm.
we had this section where we had to go to the Burma border, cross over to Burma, and the moment you cross over, you're asked to wear a mask and all of that. Uh, so we were following the news from December about what's happening in rest of the world. We saw that the cases are rising in the West, and we saw in watch in horror about what's happening in the US, and we also saw what's happening in China and also in different parts like in UK and Germany and all of that. So we were thinking of that there might be a potential of a lockdown in India, even though Indian case reports were very less at that time. So the moment we came back from our first World War II trail in Manipur, which was very early in March, we started planning about what to do in terms of if there is a lockdown, and lo and behold, there was a lockdown right after the 15th of March when we 15th of March was when we stopped our walking tours, our tours and all that. We gave everyone full refund. There was no question about not giving anyone refund for anything. And we uh, basically decided that we should test the waters by doing some workshops, virtual workshops, to see if there will be people interested in them. We did several capacity building workshops, which is like themed on heritage and architecture and all of that. So Shomon, Anmol, Chelsea, and I did several workshops, and we saw a huge amount of interest in those workshops. And what happened is then we realized that we need to take the next step, which is we can use Zoom because Zoom was suddenly becoming popular, and we can actually start virtual tours for a global audience. At this point, a friend from Exeter who was in Exeter University at the same time as I was doing my masters, he actually did his masters he was doing his MBA at that point in 2008. So he reached out to us, seeing an advertisement that we had put up for a business advisor. So he came on board. His name is Vaibhav. So thank you, Vaibhav, if you're listening. So he came on board and he had these, like we discussed our ideas with him. He brought in some funding, and we decided to pivot completely virtual. And since we already had thought ahead of time for like 3 years about what would happen if we make something virtual, think that we were a little ahead of the curve in making, not relying on PowerPoint presentations, but doing something more.
Mhm.
Um, so we invested immediately on Zoom. We invested immediately on Prezi. We invested immediately on a 360-degree camera, uh, and we tried to make these virtual experiences as immersive as possible, as close as possible to the real experience, to for the global audience. And we saw that there was a huge uptake. People from more than like 130 cities have now joined our virtual tours, and we did not do it as a makeshift thing. We decided that if we're going to do it, then we have to be all in for it and forever for the future, even if we start even when we start our physical tours. So yeah, that's what we how we started to do that. Uh, and that led to our rebranding, because we realized that Heritage Walk Calcutta is a very Calcutta based name, Calcutta based brand.
Mm.
Since we're going global, since we're looking for global partners, we are making this um, um, exciting platform about to bring these global partners with their unique offerings, uh, so that you can rent those like Netflix and explore those places virtually, sitting at your homes, uh, and then plan your travel there when you go there later. So since we were planning to do all of this, we needed to project a more global entity. So we rebranded to Immersive Trails, and thank you very much to the wonderful branding team that we had of Visual Sarcasm. Look them up if you need rebranding or need a logo made. They did our rebranding process very, very well.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's how we dealt with COVID. Basically, we took it as a challenge rather than seeing it as a barrier, and we kept on innovating as much as possible. So one form of the innovation is that we are putting up this platform. Our website is in preparation now, where you can actually rent tours for 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours. And these tours will be from all over the world. Different partners would put their tours up. You can then watch it, or there will be a functionality that if you are in that place, if you are in Calcutta and if you rented this tour, you can actually go out yourself and play that tour as an audio tour on your mobile as you walk around and see these places. So it will have this dual functionality as well. And we're also looking for investment aggressively to really increase our tech section so that we can make our experiences, our partners' experiences, more accessible for the globe, for everywhere in the world. So that's what the future looks like for
Mhm.
us. Um, I think Shamarpon has a question. He's asked, saying, if you had the funding, what would be the project that you would take up? Well, first we will make our tours more accessible by creating cutting edge app and virtual experience platform. We are already doing that, but we'll make it more cutting edge. And
Mhm.
in terms of conservation project, we would like to take up at least one conservation project by repurposing an old house into something that's good for the community. So we want to do that
Um,
as well.
Also, if we're talking pie in the sky, we have several ideas for reusing um, historically important buildings in Calcutta, many along the riverfront, many uh, falling down or in danger of being torn down, into things that would be really great for a tourist perspective and for also the community and anyone in Calcutta to, spend time there and get to do things. So that if the funding isn't necessarily the issue there is access to people who can make those things actually happen. So if we're talking pie in the sky, there's some things that we have ideas for and would like to talk to somebody in authority about if they would be interested.
Yeah, so for example, we have this idea of training locals to be local students, local rickshaw drivers, local toto drivers, because they know their cities best. In the small cities like Murshidabad or uh,
Vishnupur.
Bishnupur or different parts of Purulia or even Shantiniketan and nearby, uh, as guides, like guides who do ethical research and all of that. Um, and also, Armon says officially, hopefully, office space for immersive trails in the future. Yes, we're all
Yeah.
working from home right now, but yeah, um, yeah. So we want not just in Bengal, but all over India and all over South Asia in the future. So we want to do that. We want to provide these trainings, make them able to uh, to be local guides to people, to visitors who actually get that experience, immersive experience. We want to bring them under one platform, give them the training, and give them customers as well. And that will help them with the livelihood. But for this, I mean, we are not the government. We have tried to reach out to the various government agencies several times. Our phone calls went unanswered. Our emails were never answered. So, if anyone in the government, in the tourism department of India or West Bengal, if you're listening, we have some great ideas we want to discuss with you and work with you. We are not your competitors. We want to work with you, and we want to make these come true. So please do give us an audience in your office at some point. Uh, we have tried to reach out to you, but we never were successful. So please do hear out what we have to say at one point, because we are not just a normal business. We want to give back to the community in many ways. So that's how I think the future looks like for us. Uh, yeah. So
So
yeah. So you wanted to give a teaser about the partners
yeah,
that we're
so
onboarding.
a couple of the partners that I'll just mention quickly. Many of you are aware that we've done a collaborative walk with Uncomfortable Oxford in the past. They will be coming on board to make their tour,
Virtual.
at least one tour of theirs virtual, plus several of the collaborative experiences that we have contemplated, as well as the one that we've actually done. Those will be coming up on the platform, we expect. Um, there is a uh, there's a tour company in Western Australia run by a guy named Clinton Walker, which is an indigenous run tour company that shows the ancestral land of a specific group, and that is also going to be like he's thinking about how to put up some of those experiences. Those will be very different because I believe they take a plane to get to some of their sites. So that would be a very different experience from a walking tour, but it'll be a really good experience, and their landscape is just amazing, lovely. Um, some other ones that I can mention are social justice tours in New York City, um, and uh,
Austin,
also
we
in yeah.
in Jaffna, Sri Lanka. So we trained Austin during one of the training programs in collaboration with University of Exeter, and Austin is now started doing physical tours in Jaffna, which, as you know, is a war-ravaged city, but it has gorgeous architecture. So he started doing tours there. He's an architect, and he also will come on board, put his architecture tours for the virtual platform. And then we have Bobby from Imphal Battle Remembrance Tours, who does very in-depth research and then leads his tours
Mhm.
in Manipur about the World War II sites. So he will also put some of his experiences and explorations on the platform as well.
Also, Invisible Cities, which is a UK social enterprise, which actually teaches people who have experienced homelessness or are currently homeless to be guides in their locality. They will also be putting some things up on the platform.
Yeah.
So
So
these
apart
are just some
from
examples.
So apart from that, we're also launching our academy. We already have launched it through our workshops in January. So this is where we will run capacity building workshops, and we will also run some refresher courses for generally mainly people, students in humanities, or those who want to learn methods and theories and humanities and all of that, because a lot of the online education platform exists, but most of them are for sciences. We want to create something for humanities students, and we want to and because there are a lot of humanities students around all over the world, so this is going to be we are not going to make any claims like Whitehead Junior, but we are going to launch it as an online ed tech platform as well very soon. So those are the plans. If
A
you do
couple more things that we do, and these are things that we have been doing, but we kind of formalized when we did the rebranding. First is tracing legacies, where we do family history research for people whose ancestors were in Calcutta. Um, Also Bengal to some extent, but mostly in Calcutta at this point. And then we also do consultancy projects. So we have worked with several film makers and web series makers to provide the research that's needed to actually make their ideas come to life, and to give a good historical grounding to the things that they're making. So hopefully some of those will come out fairly soon.
Yeah.
um, Obviously, COVID has thrown a
So we're
wrench in
not allowed
everything.
to
So,
say what we are working on right now, but we are working on two web series right now.
mhm,
Um, and they will probably be out on Netflix or Amazon
mhm.
Prime at some point. Um,
We also did research on to assist with the creation of an animated film called Sultana's Dream, which will be coming out at some point in the future.
the
The
teaser
teaser
is
trailer
out.
is out, so you can go look that up.
Yeah. So I before we end, I want to thank everyone who explored with us, who follow us on social media and everywhere else religiously, everyone who had commented here about how much they like us. Thank you very much, everyone, to help us, or even if you don't like us, that criticism helps. So thank you very much, everyone, for helping us reach at this point. I would also like to wholeheartedly thank my team members from the very beginning till today. Whoever has been a part of Immersive Trails team has made some contributions. Uh, Thank you very much. Without you, we would not have achieved come to this point uh, at all. I would also like to thank our consultant group of consultants that we had from the beginning to up to today for their work consulting us and keeping us on the right track. Apart from that, we really appreciate all your support, and we would want to keep on bringing interesting stories to you, hopefully for Pan India very, very soon. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time and patience for listening to it. If you know anyone in the government, in the tourism department, do ask them to give us an audience if possible. Because we have some ideas that we do want their help with. But thank you, and do hope to see you exploring with us virtually or in the real world very soon. And stay tuned for the launch of our merchandise and our virtual walks platform.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, and I'm going to end this broadcast now. Have a great Valentine's Day weekend, everyone.
Yeah.